Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm your host, Alan Moore, and I'm excited to have XYPN members John and Liz, founders of Trail Financial Planning in Bellingham, Washington, on the show today. Both John and Liz have very different backgrounds, but both were career changers. Liz actually started her career in a broker-dealer before deciding this wasn't the career for her, so she became a therapist. She ended up finding her way back to financial planning, though, and has been using her skill set of communication and digging in with clients to really understand their motivations to elevate the financial planning process. John came from a background in teaching and discovered financial planning and started the transition over. They decided to partner for the launch of their RIA as they saw the benefits of having a partner to bounce ideas off of and provide a complementary skill set. Both still have other jobs, with John making the leap into full-time financial planning here shortly, but it was great to hear how they're both making it work to have two jobs each. They're still working through what the ideal firm structure will be, but I was able to dig in around how they communicate about issues, and it was a great discussion that all listeners with a business partner or thinking about having a business partner will benefit from. XYPN's Can't Miss annual conference returns to St. Louis in September 2019. This event is jam-packed with valuable content for new firm launchers and established firm owners alike. Take a much-needed break from working in your business to work on your business and connect with like-minded advisors leading the financial planning movement. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/XYPN live radio to grab your pass today. You do not want to miss this. You can find any of the additional resources that we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/203. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN Radio listeners. It's the community of advisors we've all been looking for that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here's my interview with John and Liz. Hey, John and Liz, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being on.
Thanks for having us, Alan. We're excited.
Yeah, thank you.
So just to give listeners sort of a quick overview of the practice, where are you located, number of clients, sort of the business relationships that the two of you have, and then we'll dig into the details.
Okay, great. We're in Bellingham, Washington. How many clients do we have?
So we're a financial planning, sort of a typical setup planning investment management firm. We have about 15 current planning only clients and then 20 investment management clients. And so we distinguish those two. The investment management people, we also do planning for them, but for lots of reasons, including compliance, we kind of have to distinguish the two.
Yeah, which we can talk about. Washington is a tough state right now from a regulatory standpoint, which we're hoping will change soon. Yeah, so let's go back in time a little bit. So Liz, I'll start with you and how you came to be in a financial planning firm. So what has been your career path?
Okay, well, mine has been quite long, and I'm a career changer now into the financial planning path. But I started out with a business degree years ago, and then I ended up getting a master's in mental health counseling, and I've been a therapist for the last 20 years, working mostly with young adult women and adolescents.
Now, that is not a transition you hear much from going from business degree to therapy. So what was it about that?
Well, after my business degree, I did work at a broker-dealer firm for a year and was quite disillusioned with it. It wasn't really for me at the time. And I was pretty young, and I ended up traveling, and afterwards came back and really wanted to study psychology. So I went from psychology, I got a degree in psychology, and then went and got my master's after that.
Okay. So yeah, what was it about therapy that was an attractive profession for you?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I liked a more human connection with people. I think when I was at the brokerage firm and doing business, I didn't feel that as much. And I really was attracted to the idea of working with people and helping people.
Yeah, it's so interesting how, most people don't view financial planning as a helping profession, right? People from outside the industry, they think we're all insurance salespeople. And I really believe therapy and financial planning are very closely aligned in terms of the ultimate work that we do in helping our clients really discover, what it is that they want out of life and helping them achieve that. So I think there's a lot more crossover than people give it credit for. But, I think I'm going to be saying that for the next 30 years to try to convince folks that that's the case.
Well, actually, I really believe that to be the case. And I feel that when I'm working with financial planning clients, just how similar it actually is, the work and how you do the work with people.
So how did you transition from therapy into financial planning then?
Well, I met a woman who was a financial planner, and she had been a nurse practitioner in her former life. And we just talked, and she thought I would really like it. I really liked the idea of a more kind of problem-focused, goal-directed work with people. Therapy can be sometimes nebulous. And so I was just excited about that. I have young kids, and I was thinking, I don't know if I want to be a therapist working with adolescents when my kids are adolescents. So I was thinking of kind of different career paths after working with clients for so long. And she just thought I would really like it. So I created a relationship with her, and from that just slowly have been working towards changing into financial planning.
I tell you what, it sounds like a small thing, but that's a really big transition is to, yes, they are closely aligned professions, but it's hard to see that when you're on the outside. So, I mean, it's such a big career move, to leave what you've been doing for, a decade or more, and you spent all this time in school and all that. I mean, how do you make that transition? Because, we'll talk about John's story, which I know a little bit better, and you're both career changers. So how do you make the decision to walk away from, this career that you've been building and this expertise you've been building into a new career, which thankfully you can now, still use many of the skill sets that you learned?
Right. I think because I can still use a lot of the same skill sets, it's really a nice natural transition, but it's a really slow one. I mean, I would say I'm scaffolding into financial planning, where I've really kept my counseling practice, and I'm slowly moving out of that as I move into more financial planning clients. So I'd say it's slow. It hasn't been, and I really have wrestled with that, whether I should just jump and go right into financial planning or do this kind of slower move. And that's what I keep doing. I keep coming back to wanting to keep counseling and grow this new financial planning. I kind of think of it as doing and both, like doing it all.
So what is your current breakdown of time between therapy and the financial planning firm?
So right now, I would say I'm still doing therapy just due to a bunch of life situations. I'm doing my counseling practice about 80% and financial planning about 20%. And I'd like to move that in the fall to more 50-50.
Okay, awesome. And then did you go through a sort of a formal financial planning education program? Where are you at from a CFP standpoint and more formal education, if you will?
Yeah, so I took the Series 65 about a year and a half ago. I was trying to get that. And then I'm currently doing the curriculum for the CFP program.
Okay, awesome. So are you working then directly with clients, doing financial planning?
I am. I'm working with a few clients, yes.
And I'd say I probably pushed Liz to move a little faster than she was ready, because we've been talking about it for a few years, going into business together. And so a couple years ago, when I was ready to make the leap, I was like, Liz, we should do it right now.
And so we did.
Yeah, she's game.
Yeah. So I'd say I have about 2 financial planning clients a month right now, and mostly just do plans for them, assessment, strategizing, problem identification, and then working with them ongoing if that's what they'd like.
Makes sense. All right. So John, let's hear some of the path you took, because it has also been varied and long, I think, to get to this point. So what did you think you were going to be when you grew up?
Well, I remember really just thinking I was never going to grow up all through my 30s. And then I set a real strong goal for myself. I was like, all right, when I turn 30, I need a real job. And so I went back to school and got my teaching degree. My wife and I moved overseas. We lived in South Africa for a couple of years. And when we went there, we all of a sudden found ourselves, we used to live in Bozeman without our whole outdoor community, and we had extra income and not that many things to do, because when you're working in another country and you don't have a big community, we ended up with time. So I was like, I need to learn how to manage my own money because we had extra money. And so I just started sort of self-learning. That was back in 2002. Then we started a family, moved back to the States. I kept teaching until 2012. I kept trying to get other friends really interested in taking charge of their finances. And finally, my neighbor was like, Chesbrough, will you just do it for me? And so I looked into becoming an RIA, and the Washington State has this whole page that says, here's how you become an RIA. And I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool. So I did that. And then in 2015, people started, more and more people were asking me for help, and they started asking me for more complicated questions. And I realized like, wow, I need to know a lot more about this. That's when Liz and I really started talking about it in earnest. And I started the CFP coursework and finished that and passed it in November of 2016. And then we went on a family travel trip again in 2016. And I had about 4 months of time where I wasn't working as a teacher because I'd taken a half year off. And I knew that was time that I could really dive into this business. And so that's when I said to Liz, I was like, hey, I've got time. I'm ready to do it. You want to do it with me? Let's go. And she said, okay, let's go. And so then we started Trail Financial Planning in the spring of 2017.
Mm-hmm.
How did the two of you originally meet?
Yeah. So my wife's a therapist and Liz is a therapist. And so they have professionally been colleagues and friends for a long time. And then my wife and I and Liz, we bought a building together where all three of us now have our offices. So we've been in business partnership for several years.
Okay. And so what was it that the two of you saw in each other that was going to make this a successful business relationship? Because I'll say that a lot of people rush into it, and it's probably harder to split up from a business partner than it is to get divorced. It's just a mess, right? And so like you want to be sure you're making a good decision, but you never really know. But what did the two of you see in each other that you felt like was going to make this thing work?
That's a great question, Alan. Liz, you're up.
Well, we had owned. Oh, it's such a good question. We had owned the building together. We had found out kind of inadvertently that we were both interested in becoming planners along the way. And I think it was kind of intuition, unfortunately, for lack of a better way to say that. I think we just thought it would be something that would work together, just based on our skill sets and the differences that we have, that we could do it.
And you had worked some together already, right? And
right.
You'd gone into business the first time, which I guess, you don't have to buy a building with someone to necessarily assess that, your how to get along, but it's probably easier to own a building together than to run a financial planning firm together. But yeah, it's an important thing that I think it's easy to overlook. I didn't know Michael at all when we started XY. We barely knew each other. So we're fortunate that it worked out. But it is something that I don't think we pay enough attention to, but is important is, who you're getting into business with, because it is a marriage. It's just a different type of marriage, that is important that it works well.
Yeah, and I think we tried to be pretty intentional about it. We got a book, the partnership charter. We worked through some of their prompts and sort of created our own partnership charter about it. I talked to a lot of people about partnerships and heard a lot of that feedback that it's difficult. But from my perspective, like there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so I've always felt that I do much better work when I have somebody to collaborate with. And maybe that's the teacher in me or whatever. But so I really wanted to work with somebody. I had talked to lots and lots of people about, hey, we should talk about investments and finances of our families. And most of my friends liked the idea of it, but we mostly just sat around, drank beer. So when like Liz is really interested in all the topics, and then she has a great interpersonal skill set of working with people. So I knew that I had a lot to learn from Liz. I also like the fact that as a business owners, she's female and I'm male, and so there's a little bit of diversity within our business to help people of different walks.
Very cool. Yeah. It's like you said, sometimes it's just a gut, and just sort of seeing, hoping for the best.
I'll add to that. It was a guy. That's kind of how I operate a lot. But also I knew that Don was really skilled, and he had been doing this for about 5 to 7 years before, and was really excited about starting a business and excited about working with me too, and got me involved with XY, and it just felt like it would be a good fit.
So, John, you sort of glossed over this in the teaching background that you have. So, I mean, you've been teaching for a number of years now in the school, correct?
Yes, correct.
So, how do you feel like that transition has been? So, Liz coming from a therapist to financial planner, you're coming school teacher to financial planner. How has that career transition gone?
Yeah, I don't think it's as closely related as I would have guessed to begin with. At first, I talked to a lot of people, and they said, "Oh yeah, being a teacher, that transition, lots of people do it," which is true. But interpersonally, I guess I relate to people a lot. That's what I'm attracted to the profession for. But the intimate and emotional nature of it around a person's life, I'm a physics teacher. I'm a physics and math teacher, so it's been much more, it's much more skills oriented or content oriented, and less so much about self development of my students. Some of that, but much more skills. So I do present some information to clients, but there's a whole realm of just like trying to process and work our way through the emotional weight of someone's finances that I absolutely love. That it's what's gotten me really fired up about this profession. But it's not so related to teaching.
Yeah, it's interesting because I too would have been on the having a background as a teacher because would be a big help because I enjoyed the thought of teaching. I taught a couple classes in college, but I was never a teacher full time. And so I felt like there was some education crossover, but it also depends on how much you're educating your client, which sometimes we can do not enough of. Sometimes we can do too much and clients just want us to do it. Some clients don't care how the watch is made. They just want to know the time. But that's really interesting feedback because I would definitely put myself in the camp of oh yeah, teaching to financial planning, easy transition.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm enjoying it a lot and I get pretty good feedback from clients. So maybe there is more crossover than I give it credit, but I don't look at myself and be like, oh yeah, this is just like teaching.
So what is your time breakdown between teaching and the financial planning firm?
Yeah, good question. So when we started the firm in 2017, I had time off. Then I kind of freaked out about income. And so I went back to school full time. That was in 2017. Then I was getting busy a year ago. And so this year I've been working half-time teacher and half-time financial planning. And our school schedule has just worked out absolutely perfectly for me that I can be at school for one day and then I can be at business for the other day. So yesterday I was teaching physics and today here I am as a financial planner. That is not something that I'm kind of lucky that it's happened this year. I know that if I stayed, I couldn't do that in a consistent way. So I already asked for next year for full leave. So I'll be done teaching at the end of this year.
Oh, wow. So you went back, but now you're going to be stepping away. Is that a time? Is it just come down to time? Is it just wanting to be able to transition your focus over?
Yeah, it's both. It's time. It's wanting to transition my focus. I recognize that, well, first of all, you open up a business and you're like, this is going to be so fun. And then all of a sudden you're running a business. You're like, oh my God, there's a lot of things to know and learn and figure out. And when I can't dedicate all of my mind and energy towards it, I feel the repercussions of that. So I need to dedicate the full thing, my full time towards it. And also then from just a time perspective, I'm pretty much working 1.5 jobs right now because financial planning, I'm close to 160 hours a month. I think I've been putting in 140 per month for the last 3 months.
Just into the planning firm?
Yeah, just in the business.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you really are full-time planning and also teaching half-time. No big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And nobody's super happy about that, including my wife.
Understood. So I guess where to take it from here. So the two of you are now, so both working in the firm. Obviously, there's some transitioning in and learning and all of that. And you've been in business now, you said about 2 years together?
Yeah, 2 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So where have you found some of the early success in terms of getting clients? Because I know, in the end, it all comes down to being able to get clients. So where have you sort of focused and been able to see some success there?
So I would say for me, I blog, or I've been blogging, and I wrote a couple blogs. Washington State had a big shift in its college savings plan where people had to make some kind of critical decisions about college savings for their kids. And so I was blogging about that. Our website went from about 10 hits a week to when I blogged about that right before the deadline that everybody had to figure out. All of a sudden, our website was getting like 400 plus hits a day. And tons of people started calling me from that. And then so I would just talk to people. And that probably turned into, 4 or 5 different clients. And then I had a handful of clients. And then I think our Google search results, maybe as a result of that blog, have started coming up from that. So we're getting inquiries from a mix of direct Google search, some referral, and then also from people finding us directly through issues related to the blog, or I think the blog is creating an ability for people to find our website. Then, I don't know, Liz, I think yours are coming from slightly different.
Mostly referrals, I believe. Mostly I'm getting referrals. I see a lot of single women approaching retirement. That's kind of my niche, or widowed women. And so I think they're hearing about me through their therapist or through other friends, mostly. Yeah. And some are Googling and really looking for a fee-only planner or have enjoyed knowing that I'm a therapist. So I'm getting some specific questioning around budget and behavior and things like that.
Yeah, that I want to talk about because this is fascinating to me. Listeners, may remember that my first job was with a financial planner, Rick Kaler, who we had a therapist that we collaborated with. In my master's degree program, we actually did financial planning in the marriage and family therapy clinic because the marriage and family therapy students that had to get their hours kept getting money questions. They didn't know the answer. So they brought us in, and I'll say we learned a lot more than they did just from being able to watch the interaction between a therapist and a client. So a couple of things with this. So one is, how do you manage the ethics? Because I know this is something the Financial Therapy Association, or the FTA, had started talking about a long time ago. But do you do financial planning for a client who you are also engaged in a therapy relationship with, or?
No, absolutely not. No, I have it very separate, actually. I actually even had different last names. I have a practice last name and then a married last name. And I was really like, I'm going to differentiate entirely because I don't want to cross any of those ethical boundaries whatsoever. So I do not see clients or anyone that would know a client for financial work.
Okay.
With that said, I think the other direction is a little bit slipperier. I guess that's even a word. So I'll get somebody who wants financial planning, and if they want a more therapeutic approach, I still will refer out if they need therapy. If I can do some behavioral work or case management with them around their financial situations, I'll do that. If that makes sense, that differentiation. But if they really want to go deep into their therapeutic issues, I won't see them for that.
Yeah. Is there a line that's clear, or is it sort of a gut feel of, we all have different definitions of some of these things. So it's like, you can help with behavioral change, but you can't do therapy. Like, is that a gray area, or is there a point at which it's a pretty clear line of, okay, this is the line I can't cross?
I think it's each person. I think it's a case by case basis on that. But I definitely, for example, if I'm seeing somebody who has grief and I can tell it's protracted grief, they're not really moving out of it, and they want to do financial planning with me, I'll refer them to a therapist. And that's kind of how I draw that line, is I refer them to somebody. I help them get connected to somebody. So that's very clear that I'm not that person. Does that answer that question?
It does. It's a line that the rest of us haven't seen before because we don't. And I imagine I don't know, I just ask, is it a struggle that you have this amazing skill set in therapy to not want to go there with someone because you're like, I can help. Here's the help, but you can't.
Yeah, that's an interesting question for me because it actually is like I can see where you would need help, but it's actually a relief for me because I want to move more into problem-focused work with people, like working on a specific issue around their money. It's kind of a relief, like, okay, that's not for me to work with. I'm going to refer that out, and now I don't have to worry about helping them with that.
Fair enough. My therapist practices solutions-focused therapy, and I know that is a hot button topic of whether or not, but I love it because I can go to her and I can be like, all right, here's my problem. She's like, okay, let's solve it. And we solve it. And she's like, I don't know, come back when there's another problem. And I love that because that's just my personality. But I know that there are many different forms of therapy and styles and that sort of thing that may or may not lend itself well to a financial planning relationship. But like we said, there is this conversation of ethics of, you need to be careful, and therapists especially can't wear two hats. I wish financial planners could only wear one hat, but they let us do whatever we want, except when they don't. In the case of Washington, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, and it's really important to me doing this work. One of the main drives for me to become a planner is I feel like people can get taken advantage of by the financial world, and so I really want to make sure that's not what's happening to somebody because there is that differential in power and it's an opportunity for people to take advantage. I really want to make sure it's really clean and clear that that's not happening.
Fair enough. So do y'all ever, so again, when my first job where we had the therapist, and I don't think he was practicing therapy with us in the room. He was really there to ask the next question. And that's what I've just always been so impressed with therapists, with whether it be in that setting or my therapist asking me questions, or my wife and I see a therapist sometimes, like just being in the room with someone who is just gifted at asking questions. That was just so powerful for us as financial planners. Do y'all ever work with clients together in the same room, sort of planner, not therapist, but planner with the therapy, skill set, or do you keep it separate and you each have your own clients that you work with primarily?
Primarily, we do it with our own clients, but we are moving towards that direction. We eventually would love to be an ensemble practice where we have multiple advisors working with individual clients. At least that's my goal. And so we've done a couple testers, especially when we see. So far, we've really done it with couples where we're like, we think there's some underlying, I don't know,
juice.
Cycle. Yeah, there you go. So we've done that. We've done that once. I don't know. Yeah. And we ended up just taking one person as being the lead advisor, and then Liz, in that case, was just a note taker. And what was awesome about it is that then she and I were able to talk about their case and what's going on. And there was definitely some tension between the two of them in the room. That was really valuable.
Yeah, I love having another professional in the room. I think above all else, that was one of the more powerful things was just, even if it's, lead advisor, associate advisor, but especially someone whose practice as a therapist. And so they have the skill set of reading people and really understanding people's emotions. It's just so helpful to be able to cover your blind spots. And so it's expensive because you have two professionals in the room. And that's why a lot of us don't do it, is because it basically doubles the fee that someone has to pay us when we have two people in the room. But it is a really powerful interaction if you can do it occasionally or when necessary even.
Yeah. And I think that's probably where we'd go, is that we would start with two people in the room for the discovery portion of a meeting and then back off to a one advisor to a client just to keep the costs down. But I find it really valuable, and Liz has great insight into people.
So how did y'all decide to have a partner out of the gate? Because I know a lot of folks, we think entrepreneurship, I'm going to do it on my own, I'm going to take over the world. And, I'm obviously a fan of having a partner. I've got a great one. But you made this decision earlier than most. I find most people who end up with a partner either, already had some sort of partnership that just sort of rolled into financial planning, which maybe this sort of is, or, they get far enough into the business. They're like, yeah, I really don't want to do this alone. How did you make that decision? Because I feel like that was a big one to do pretty early on.
Okay, Liz just pointed at me. I think that's because I dragged her into this maybe to some degree. Again, I just think that I have always worked collaboratively with people, and I feel like there's like when you're creating something, I've always thought of this analogy of a pencil that you've got one side of it's the writing side, and then the other side of it is the eraser. And you don't really create a good product with only one side of the pencil. And so I'm a pretty good writer, but I kind of I vomit out stuff. And Liz is kind of the eraser, and she's like, yeah, that's crazy. That's too much. That's like slow all this stuff down. So I think we're going to build something a lot better than what I could build on my own. There's no doubt that it's been challenging, like you said, like it's a relationship. And so we are constantly having conversations that sometimes I feel like a little spoiled little teenager going, I feel like I'm working too hard. I don't know. And I'm getting resentful or something. And we just need to, and we talk about it. And then I feel way better. And so we have to continually have those conversations. And Liz, and I don't know, Liz, if you want to say something about how you feel.
Well, if anybody knows John is a workhorse. He can produce a tremendous amount of work. And I am not. And I will work less. And we talked a lot about that, but those kind of differences do end up showing up of, equitable effort into the business. And how do you allocate for that and keep it equitable and let everybody be who they are? And so those have been some big discussions. When you're in a partnership, it's a partnership. It's not, I think we kind of had some visions of having a real siloed partnership, and you really can't silo it that easily completely. And so how to manage that, those are all some questions I think maybe we wish we would have thought out more in the beginning, but we've thought them out as we've gone along, and we keep coming back to feeling great about being a partnership. So
yeah. I don't think we knew, we didn't know the questions to necessarily ask. Like we had this vision that, it'll sort of look like a realtor model, and that we're both working under the same umbrella. We're just sort of sharing costs, and we build a business that we can both work within. Maybe as we've realized that the work is just much more complex than what I thought, that realize we're not sure that model works all that well, or I don't know. We're still navigating that. Like how does it work? So we're still siloed. Liz has her clients and she makes her revenue. I have my clients, I make my revenue. We're starting to get a couple blended cases here where it makes sense for us to work together, and we're navigating that. Like, how are we going to do that? I think, yeah, that's, and then there's time differentials. Like I have already committed half of my sort of working hour time to this business, and Liz isn't ready to do that, which is totally fine. But we need to figure out how do you navigate that? And so we have check-ins. I don't know, every month or so, we'll go get breakfast or just have coffee or something. Just how you feeling, what's going on, and talk it through.
I love that. You hit on a couple of awesome points there. One, it's a really interesting analogy around real estate, because real estate agencies, I guess, they are truly siloed. I mean, they share cost of resources, and that is it. I mean, you don't help other realtors in your office. Why would you? It doesn't help you. Your revenue is not generated there. But the direction you're talking about going sounds to me more like a law firm, where it's, yeah, I have my clients where I'm the relationship manager, but if I have an issue, I'm going to bring in other lawyers with other, niche expertise and maybe hand them off, or maybe work together. It's more of a legal firm ensemble, if you will, versus the true siloed of a real estate practice.
That's,
yeah.
I don't know if that's fair.
And, and I come from a very siloed profession. I've been in groups with other therapists, but we're all very individual and we don't share any revenue. So it's just been interesting thinking about the different ways you can partner and build a business together.
The other thing that you mentioned was being willing to sit down and do check-ins. I know the EOS model, which we follow closely, recommends a same page meeting. I think it's at least quarterly, if not more regularly, with a partner as well as with your team members. Because, Michael and I deal with this too, where this is my sort of my full-time job, because I'm CEO of XY as well as Advice Pay. So those two jobs equal my full-time job. But, Michael has 47 other things going on. And so we are equitable owners, but we are not equitable in the business. And it is frustrating sometimes, particularly when he's like, why didn't we do this? I'm like, I don't know, because you didn't do it. because you don't work here all the time. And you just have to, and I believe that introspection is probably, and really that's EQ, I guess, is probably the most powerful tool in your tool belt to be able to say, like, you know what, I am frustrated and here's why I'm frustrated. And I know it's stupid that I'm frustrated, but it doesn't mean I'm any less frustrated because I know it's dumb to be. So let's talk about it. Let's just get on the same page. So I imagine being partnered with a therapist helps there, but it is a struggle, but it is so critical to keep the relationship healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, like, we're part of a study group, and just some things are just so helpful when you just mention your problem to somebody else, like Taylor and Kaylee, they run a firm down in Southern Washington, and they're part of our study group. And I just mentioned this of like, oh yeah, we had a discussion, and I was feeling like I was doing most of the work, and they just listened patiently and then said, well, yeah, because you're two different people. Like, there's no such thing as an equitable partnership between two people. There's always going to be different levels of investment, of everything. That's just normal. We're different people. And I was like, oh, that's true.
So I'm curious, Liz, because you had mentioned earlier that you ended up working with a lot of, I think, recently divorced clients. So is that sort of a niche you fell into or developed intentionally? Sort of where did some of those folks come from?
That's a good question. They're not all recently divorced, but I think they've found me. I don't know if it's because I'm female, or I was realizing as I looked at our website that it doesn't actually specifically say that's who my niche is, which I'd like to change actually. But yeah, I think it's something that I have fallen into. Actually, they found me, which I like. It's what I wanted. It's just I don't know how it's happening.
I think Liz, I think you've been really good about processing this change for yourself, like talking to the community as well. Mm-hmm. And so, she said that most of the people are coming from referrals. Liz has been really active in the community and started nonprofits and stuff. So probably that word has, it's a pretty natural word getting out thing for you.
Yeah, I think that's how it's happening. And then once I work with a few people like that, they're telling their friends who are single, women who are afraid to go talk to a planner because they don't know what to expect, that I'm pretty approachable and not selling them anything. And then they want to come and see me.
Yeah, very, very fair. And it is tough whenever you're going through some of those situations and you're not sure who to talk to, you're not sure who to work with. And so much of this business is relationship. It is personality driven. It's both expertise and personality, right? And what's going to, be the best fit. So do y'all ever have clients come in that are sort of there for the firm that they show up and they're just like, hey, like I heard you're fee only fiduciary financial advisor. Who do I work with? Like, do y'all ever have those situations as opposed to them coming in to work specifically with one of you?
Yeah, I would say for the most part, that's what we get. We actually, maybe 25% of people say that they specifically want to work with, and it's almost always specifically want to work with Liz. Nobody asks really, I want to work with John, the teacher.
Fair enough.
So then we navigate it. Then we just have a phone call with them, and we try to figure out their needs. That's been really difficult because it seems like regardless of who speaks to the person to begin with, that person becomes attached to who they spoke with at the first time. So like I talked to a woman, she's very nice, and I just thought that Liz would be a much better fit. And I told her that, and I told her why. And then it was a little bit of a hard transition. We worked it out, and I think it's worked okay. But she sort of fit Liz's niche, like spot on. And then other times Liz has talked to I really enjoy working with couples, and so she's talked to some couples, and she said, "No, I think John might be the right person for you," and we've gone that way.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I know a lot of firms, the assistant in the firm or the receptionist or someone actually handles that first phone call and sort of, directs people around. So it's really interesting that you're finding folks, it's sort of that initial relationship and they're opening up to you about money. Maybe this is the first time they've ever opened up to anybody about money, even if it's on a basic level, with that initial phone call to sort of gauge where they're at. And maybe that's sort of causing, that attachment of like, hey, I've already done this once. Please don't make me do it again with someone else.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty savvy because I know we lost somebody because of that, or at least one person that I can think of that we try to pass off and the pass off didn't go very well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is the best metaphor, but I always felt like when a client came in that initial conversation, they were just like undressing for their financial advisor financially, right? Like they are getting financially naked and they have never been financially naked before. Sometimes not even with their partner who is in the room, and it is awkward because they are talking about things they've never talked about before. And so I could see that. I don't know if that's this particular situation, but for the advisors out there that are like, what are you talking about? This sounds too woo-woo. Like, yeah, it is woo-woo. And welcome to financial planning because it's money and money's hard.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy conversation. No one wakes up in the morning like, you know what I want to do today? Talk to a stranger about money. That sounds exciting. No one does that. So, for them to call us takes a lot. And I think we should honor the fact that they called us because it does take so much. Now, that being said, you need to work with the clients you're best at serving, and being able to hand them off between the two of you is probably something that you'll develop over time. But it is a tough, this is money, it's all tough.
Yeah. I think so. It's a good learning process for us or for me.
Yeah.
So transitioning just a little bit, can you talk to me about your service model? And we should probably take a step back because you are in the state of Washington. I've made a couple cracks about it just because I knew we would get to it. The state of Washington is not the fondest of non-AUM models. And so we at XY have been battling quite a bit to try to get the Washington regulators on board with monthly subscriptions and just some of the new flat fee models that are out there. And I'm hoping the recent Schwab announcement that they're going to be doing financial planning for $30 a month will help the regulators realize that this is okay, to offer financial planning on a subscription basis. So I say that to caveat just a little bit that your model, based on our conversations, has had to evolve a little bit just because of the regulators and what they're looking for. But that being said, can you talk to me about your process? We'll say, fees as well as just service model for the initial financial planning relationship. And then we'll sort of, look at ongoing relationship as well.
Sure. Yeah. So we did have a retainer model last year, or that we started out with. And and Washington State they had wanted nothing to do with that. So we pivoted to an AUM model or a hourly financial planning model. And then what we just tell clients is that based upon their assets, for my number that I tell people is for every $100,000 that I manage, that's worth 3 hours of planning time. And then so there's a whole like bookkeeping operational thing that has to kind of happen along with that. But that's intended to catch the people that are kind of in the middle, because people who don't want us to manage assets, it's fairly easy. You just do hourly. It makes sense. People who have a big account for us to manage assets, in a traditional advisory firm, all of the planning work can be sort of captured under that advisory fee. But we tend to have a lot of sort of tweener clients who, have a small IRA that they might want to roll over, or maybe not. That's part of the conversation. But our business wouldn't work if we just charged on AUM with those people. So we have to do a mix of hourly and AUM. So our overall fee structure is 1% of assets up to 500,000. There's a 0.5% above that. And then we charge hourly, like we're both doing the same, $125 an hour.
Okay. And what was the model before? What was the subscription model option, sort of pricing wise?
So we were doing $150 a month. Yeah, $150 a month.
And I will let folks know, just because I know we just scared the pants off of them on, oh no, the regulators hate retainers. Washington is the only state that we have this struggle in right now. And really what they want is they are unwilling to let advisors charge for access. You can't say, oh, it's $150 a month and call me when you need me. They want to know what services you're going to provide and what services you did provide. And it sort of all then ties back to the hourly rate and being sure that you're working, quote unquote, enough to earn your fee. Again, they have taken the most extreme stance, and it's one we're working with them on, and some of the associations are actually going to be putting some efforts towards this as well. But we do have to be adaptable. And so how are you finding the conversation, since now you've done retainer and now you're doing hourly? How have you found those conversations to be similar and maybe different in terms of engaging, clients for your financial planning services?
Well, it's interesting. So I tend to, most of my clients are in their 40s, and hourly financial planning makes sense to everybody I talk to. It sounds like you're working with a contractor. Like, here's time, I get billed for time. That makes sense. To be honest, the retainer model was like, I had a lot of puzzled looks when I mentioned it to people in their 40s. Maybe it was just a tougher sell from me being newer in the industry. Maybe I'm just comfortable with the contractor model. I don't really know. I do, like, I've learned so much from listening to other advisors speak through XY and lots of conversations. And I recognize that the challenge with the hourly model is that people won't call. And I know that is going to be a challenge moving forward. So I haven't had to deal with it. I haven't had to deal with that challenge yet, of like people not calling and all of a sudden there's a big fire that I have to put out.
Right. Showing up when they have 30 questions instead of when they had, one that you could have answered a lot more easily.
Yeah.
So do you anticipate that model changing at all, or are you finding now that it's sort of settled into something that works with regulators? Is it working for you and you feel good about
it? Well, everything's an evolution.
Sorry, I'm asking all the hard questions, huh?
I guess it's a model that works. And so it's kind of like when you break a leg. When I've had a broken leg, I don't worry about the fact that I can't run. I worry about getting it fixed. It's like, that's the life you got to live. So it's a model that works right now. We're making the best of it. I just have to be really aware. I feel like I have to be hyper aware now as a business owner to make sure that my time doesn't get spread out and that the business can still function. Because as a teacher, like, I don't work on an hourly model. I never have. I work on, you have a question, I answer it, and I don't bill you for that time. And so we're both trying to figure out, well, what does this exactly look like? Like, I don't want to turn into, I bill somebody for a 15-minute conversation. I think that's going to be a really gross business model. And I don't like the visibility on it. So that's where we've sort of landed on this. Well, if people bring in some level of asset, then a lot of those smaller conversations kind of get wrapped up within that investment management fee. And then if we do very purposeful work, like, hey, somebody really wants a cash flow budgeting exercise, that's when it's going to trigger into hourly. That's kind of my thinking on it right now, but I have lots of questions for how the business is going to work.
Yeah, fair enough. And that was always my struggle that I ran into, because I started my business operating the same way you are now. And I always struggle with, if an AUM client asks you a financial question, like, you're not going to charge them for the 6 minutes it took to answer the question, like, you're just not going to do it. But then it's like, but I'm not getting paid for this advice. I'm only getting paid AUM. So yeah, the constant battles of fees and just trying to figure out the best way, and also, the best way that the regulators are okay with.
Yeah. So working under this fee model for the last 3 months, one kind of nice benefit of it is it's forced me to really be very aware of my time, which of course is a resource that needs to be managed well. So I've been basically coming up out of 140 hours of sort of work time. I've had about probably an average of 25 billable hours per month over the last 3 months, which is made about close to $4,000 to $5,000 in revenue per month. And then AUM is the other side of that revenue piece. So right now we're about 50-50 on financial planning revenue and investment management revenue. And the math just means that we need to manage more in assets in order to make sure the business works.
Yeah, makes sense. So what are some of the big projects that the two of you are going to be working on? Because obviously you got a big transition coming once you are in the business full time, which you've already been in the business full time, but you have had a distraction that is taking your energy away. And Liz, as you sort of are transitioning and working more hours in the financial planning business, like what are the big projects or the big things that you see on the horizon for the next 12 to 24 months that you're going to be working on?
So the big one on my mind is I kind of want to circle back to where we started at the beginning, which we made that partnership charter and we set up the whole business. We set up the website and everything. I've been reading the book Traction, and even though we're not a big organization, I really want the two of us to to revisit what are our values, what are our goals, what's our mission statement within this business. I think we have a big picture that we need to hit through that. One of the requirements that Washington wants to make sure that we do well is to create a sort of an employee compliance manual that describes how we do everything. And that's a fairly ambitious task. So I know XY has a nice template that we've started working through, but that's also going to be a piece of it. So kind of really establish vision, goals, and how we operate.
Do you see any challenges or I guess excitement around just having for both of you to have more time and energy in the planning practice and just some of the things that will produce? Or is it slightly terrifying?
No, I'm really excited about having more time in the financial planning to be able to work together and have some of these projects happen. And then also to develop some other products for people that we're working with too, like doing cash flow analysis in a set way with different people who want that or those kind of things, to be able to dive into couples work a little bit more.
Yeah, so I think that's well said. So within that, there are there's almost like modules that we would love to really flesh out. What does it look like to help somebody design a cash flow and a budget? We're doing the Steve Crawford course right now, working through some of that and trying to come up with our own system for that. So that will be both challenging and rewarding if we can get it into a place where it's somewhat systematized. Because, I've already mentioned how many hours I'm working. Like that's only with something like 20 ongoing clients and roughly that number hourly clients. I can see that I will become time constrained unless we become pretty good at setting up systems to do a lot of the work. So I think your original question was, are there any challenges that we see from going more full time into that? I would say that's going to be a big challenge. Is how do we create processes that are efficient, that can scale across numerous people? Because both of us don't necessarily have a really specific. Well, Liz works with single women, but still single women is incredibly broad in terms of their issues. Maybe there's a similar emotional resonance, but I would think that you'll encounter all kinds of different retirement plans and rollovers and risk strategies that you need to deal with. And I'm finding, the same with couples. I really enjoy working with couples, and I like people who have sort of an emotional ring to wanting to deal with their finances, but their issues are all over the map.
Makes sense. And it sounds like if you're going to be in the business even more focused, Liz has to get that eraser warmed up. Because I know that's how Michael feels every time I get a little more time. He's like, all right, got to get my no hat on.
Wow.
That is an invaluable skill set to have, is the ability to tell us entrepreneurs no. So
rein it in just a little bit.
So both of you have had really varied career paths that really, have all led to sort of this point of really focusing on and going to be going full-fledged into the financial planning firm. So I'll ask you both the final question. John, I'll start with you. And that is, if there's one piece of advice, one thing that you wish you could go back and tell your younger self, one thing you wish you had known then that you know now, what do you think that one piece of advice would be?
This is so crazy that I have listened to every single podcast. I knew this question was coming. I've spent hours thinking about what I would say, and I still don't have a good answer. My answer always comes down to things like, oh, well, I would go back to myself and make sure you have fun. I guess the best one I can come up with is play the guitar more. I kind of wish I could be a better guitar player at this point. But I guess I also think about that answer and think I'm sort of settled by that answer, because it's a little bit like the George Kinder questions. When somebody doesn't look back and say, I wish I could change something or tell myself something in the past, that maybe means that the path you've been on is the one that you needed to go through. And so would I go back and tell myself to start a business earlier? I don't think so. Like, I had young kids and I love being a dad and I love my partner and I like, like all those things are really important to me. So I'm not sure that I would have done this anytime sooner. I guess maybe one thing is I would have told myself to check out financial planning a little bit earlier, because I do the field is fascinating, and I did FPA residency last year, and that was an amazing experience that really won me over to this whole career. So I guess if I had explored it earlier, who knows what would have happened? But since I like it now, I probably would have liked it earlier.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And a good note about FPA residency. We have XYPN puts on an FPA residency just for XYPN members. I think we're nailing down the dates this year. We did one last year. But yeah, truly amazing experience of learning how to do real financial planning. And so for anybody who's out there who's wanting to see real financial planning, maybe haven't had the opportunity to work in a firm with a mentor that you felt like was really able to show that to you, consider FPA residency, whether it's through FPA or if you're a member through XYPN. Very, very similar coursework, just different price point and cohort, basically.
Yeah, and I felt like I call it like the voice for financial planners. Like we were put on team, Sabrina or team Casey, and I had a lot of questions about this industry, like where's the human element in it, and I wanted to make sure it was there, that I would be able to look at myself in the mirror after doing the work for 5 years, and I came back completely enthralled. I'm like, wow, this is a human field. So can't say enough good things about it.
All right. So Liz, same question to you now that you've had some time to think about it. One thing you wish you had known or could go back and tell your younger self, what do you think that thing would be?
Well, I always have this thing that I say to my younger clients, and when they're feeling really anxious or afraid or making choices out of fear, is that all is coming. And so that's exactly what popped up when I thought of this, is I would go back to my 20-year-old self and just say, all is coming. You don't need to make that choice because it's all going to work out.
I love it. The positive note to end on.
You could tell the pencil and the eraser, right? Like my answer went on for like 5 minutes.
It is very clear the working relationship that you have. And again, I'm a huge fan of having a business partner for this exact reason, is because it really does give you that offset, that other personality in the room to be able to give advice and be able to help us, make the best decisions. So fantastic. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time to come on the show, share your wisdom and experience in what you've been working on. And I look forward to hearing how the next year or two goes as you both continue to transition in and focusing on growing the business. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alan.
It was fun.
XYPN's Can't Miss annual conference returns to St. Louis in September 2019. This event is jam-packed with valuable content for new firm launchers and established firm owners alike. Take a much-needed break from working in your business to work on your business and connect with like-minded advisors leading the financial planning movement. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/XYPN live radio to grab your pass today. You do not want to miss this. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with myself and Kitsis, and to finally find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.